How Florida State can defeat Louisville.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you to the everydayers that make this a great show. You can find us wherever you get your podcast for free and on YouTube, part of the awesome Locked On Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of $100. Fantasy sports made easy. So here's what we're going to go over today. 3 main points that all run together in succession. Number one, we're going to go over Louisville's key players on offense in the running game. This is the key to the game. If FSU does not slow down Louisville's rushing attack and you give Brom and his assistant coaching staff an opportunity to use a lot of play action, Louisville becomes a much more difficult team to beat. Number two, we're going to talk about the situations, third downs, short yardage, 1st and 10, blitzing, the whole 9 yards. And then finally, once you have stymied Louisville's rushing attack, how that gives Tate Rodemaker and the FSU offense a better chance to win the game because they're in better field position and some of the things that they need to do with that. So let's get started. First off, this is a truly dynamic rushing attack. Motions out the wazoo. You're talking about a team that will motion you to death. If you get out leveraged, Louisville will murder you. They are a pro offense in college. This is not debatable. They are a tremendously well-coached football team up front. I know Florida State fans see Louisville and they're not going to respect it. Bad idea. Very well-coached football team. And I've got the numbers to back it up. Here are the 2 players to know. Both running backs, both going to get drafted in some capacity after they leave Louisville. Number one, Jawhar Jordan, burner. This is all you really need to know to put things in perspective. The first 2 games of the year for Louisville, he only carried it 7 times in each game and had over 230 yards in those 2 games. I want to say that again. A total of 14 carries for over 230. If that didn't catch your attention, then you don't know a lot about football or you're just not trying to pay attention because he is a dude. Speed. He will hit the home run on an inside play, an outside play, a toss, break it one direction, come all the way back across, whatever. He is a no player, and he still scores. Like, a coach in basketball says, don't shoot that, and the guy hits the deep 3. He's that guy. If Florida State does not play run gap sound football, they will get torched at some point. They might hold him to 2 yards carry for 15 carries, and he'll hit a 70-yarder. You cannot have a single play, which is almost impossible. That's why Louisville is successful in the run game, where you miss a run gap fit. He will score. He will outrun anybody on the field. Second part of this, when he's been banged up and he's been hurt the latter half of this season, I'll get into that in a moment. They've got another kid, Isaac Guerendo, that comes in. A buddy of mine covers Louisville. This kid is 6'1", 225. And I said, a bruiser, what is it? He said, Brian, believe it or not, he's one of the 3 fastest guys on the field. And I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, he's 225, but he can go. Speedster. And the numbers will back that up. So here's the team stats for Louisville. Then I'll go through those 2 players. The team stats are for the last 4 games for Louisville's rushing attack. Against Virginia Tech, 38 carries, 231, 6.1 yards a tote, 4 touchdowns. UVA, 31 carries, 180 yards, 5.8 yards per tote, and a score. At Miami, 34, 162, 4.8 and 2. Miami has one of the best run defenses in the country. They ran all over them. Kentucky, 43 carries, 161 yards, 3.7 and 2. That's the last 4 games. So they've been pretty consistent. And those last 2 teams have some NFL players up front. Now let's get into Jordan and Guerendo. Jordan has had some injury issues, the lower extremities. I'm not sure how healthy he is, and he's only hit 21 carries twice this year. Against Notre Dame, had a big game, and then against Duke. But since the Duke game, his numbers have come down. He's just taken a beating. It's part of playing football if you're a running back. but he's been under 4 yards a carry the last 2 games, which tells me, and they're not going to talk about this. My theme, I say it almost every show, do not trust a coach with an injury report. I don't care what anybody at Louisville says. Zero concern. The kid's banged up. He's way too talented to average under 4, even against Kentucky and Miami. He's too good. That puts more stress on Guerendo, right? Well, against Miami alone, he had 15 carries, 93 yards at a score, and he averaged 6.2. He was probably the best running back in an individual game against Miami this year, going through their numbers. He's the backup. That's a really good 1-2 punch. So what can Florida State do against these guys? And we'll get more specific on this in about 2-3 minutes, but you cannot run quote unquote base. Like in the 90s, when Florida State was really rolling, they just kind of ran their base defense and just out-talented everybody, occasionally blitzed or whatever, but their DNs were so good, and this is before tackles were super, super athletic like they're getting now. They murdered people and kept everybody in the box. You couldn't run outside on Florida State. And it's still hard today, but then it was really different. They're not, they don't have Peter Boulware coming off the edge here. He's a little different than about anybody I've seen at Florida State, in my opinion, even Verse. But Florida State's DNs are good, so they should be able to pin them in most of the time. Again, the key is still run gap fits, backside, etc. Jordan and Guerendo can backside you, make 1 or 2 cuts and go 2 holes over from where the play was supposed to go. Gone. They can hit those plays. With that, if you look at the numbers, again, Jordan was under 4 yards carry the last couple of games. If you can stymie him early and stuff him a couple of times, kind of bring down his confidence a bit, at least that's one back you're probably going to control a little bit. I don't know about Guerendo. He's been playing really well. That being stated, they've got to do some different things besides just run the base. They've got to run all kinds of stuff. And again, I know that's a double-edged sword. It really is, because you're not going to just run whatever and expect everybody to be on the same page. They got to have all their stuff in the back end, second level, in the front, congruent. One guy misses, that can help, because their quarterback, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes, he's very prone to turnovers. He's got a pick in the last 3 games. When he's in tight situations, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but he's got 11 picks this year. He'll throw it to the other team. It's not a maybe. It's fact. And Plummer, he's just an okay guy as a quarterback. If you get him in 3rd and 5 or longer, especially with Verse and Payton playing well and the defense, Farmer and those guys getting after it, I'm telling you, if you stuff this run, you can go from a game that can be close to Florida State playing from a lead and being able to use play action and do whatever you want when you have the ball in offense. And we're going to get to that as well. Before I go to the other side, here's one last point before we finish this first little bit. Florida State's run defense was key against Florida. They didn't always stuff them. I mean, Florida's got really good running backs. We're going to see a similar kind of deal, but Guerendo's a little bigger back than what Florida had. You have to wrap up. I know that's really fundamentally, and it sounds boring, but if you let one of these guys get out in the open, you make it easier for Plummer, where he only has to make 1 or 2 plays in a drive. It mitigates the number of times he's going to throw it, and he's the key to you beating them. Why? Because the guy will screw up. He did it at Purdue. He did it at Cal. He's done it at Louisville. When they've struggled this year, their run offense is mitigated at least a little bit. Make him throw as many times as possible. And they'll scheme some things up for him. Don't get me wrong. He's got an arm. He's a big guy, etc. He will eventually throw a terrible pass. It's going to happen. Got to put him in more 3rd and longs and get him in 2nd and long, honestly, so they can't run 2nd and 4 bootlegs, waggles, play actions, or easy things where he can just dink and dunk. He's got an arm. If they can do that, Florida State keeps them behind the chains, the Noles should be able to win this game. Speaking of winning this game, Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? It is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You against the numbers instead of you against 100 million people with a bunch of statistics, spreadsheets, and even sharps that are in Vegas. You're going against numbers and yourself. So what is it? Picking against over-unders. Players, in other words. So you could pick rushing total for somebody like Trey Benson. You could pick rushing totals for the defense. You could do different leagues. That's another way to do it. You like NHL? You like NBA? Something on that with the other league? You can do that combination. Also, there is injury reboot. If you have an opportunity, you can go and you bet on something, you look at it, and boom, there's an opportunity that you don't have to worry about because your guy got hurt in the first half. It's rebooted. The other thing you want to talk about with this is the opportunity to use the app easily. You can get around on it very, very simply. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. Now, this second part is a little bit more about scheme, but it's also more result oriented. I don't have a ton of confidence in Tate Rodemaker right now because he's making his second start. He did okay in the last game, but at the end of the day, Tate was 12 out of 25 for 134 yards. It's not very good. Florida State had 224 yards of offense. Worse. They're going to stack the box and just say, go ahead, try to throw. If they have to go 80 plus yards, I'm going to say this about 5 more times before this shit is over. Consistently in this game, they're going to be in trouble. They absolutely must get negative plays in the run game against Louisville and put Plummer in tough spots so they can get short fields. If they do not, they're going home with an L. That's my prediction. It is paramount that Florida State creates a bunch of TFLs, not 2 or 3, 5 to 8. And they're going against NFL players in that backfield. Those are 2 dudes. Still got to make it happen. Florida State's got the talent to do it. They showed that they could stuff the run in key plays and key situations against Florida. By the way, stat of the game, minus 15 for Florida for an entire quarter. When Florida State turns it up, yeah, really, they had negative 15 yards for a whole quarter against Florida State. That's incredible. They can do it. They need that same kind of effort a little more consistently. I'm not saying they're going to get negative 15, but if they can hold them to a couple of quarters, they have 20 to 50 yards, you can put Rodemaker in more manageable situations where you can run play action and bootlegs and be a little more creative and not worry about it. Because if he throws a bomb and it gets picked at the other team's 20, okay, whatever. It's like a punt. You don't want to do that from your own 12. Just get the ball midfield. You cannot put that kid in a bad spot. It starts with it. So what would I do? What would I do if I was going to mix it up to try to stuff Louisville's run game? Number one thing I would try is I would really go heavy blitz on the first down in a multiple way. Zone and like fire zone is not something that's unusual. But again, Plummer just makes dumb mistakes. You might get a free touchdown out of it. He might hit a little higher percentage, maybe patient in this game. Who knows? He's got a great quarterback coach and his head coach. That doesn't mean that he's still not a guy that throws picks. Again, the last 3 games, he has at least 1. He's got 11 on the year. Second and third and long can be your money. So the other thing I would do is I would press him. They got one receiver that's pretty darn good. Mark Flash, he can go. If you can't beat one guy, and they played against a lot of good receivers this year, think about the LSU game, then you don't deserve to win the ACC title anyway. You got to be able to play some man, some cover 4, some aggressive cover 4, those kinds of concepts, and they'll figure it out. Maybe they do some combo man and zone. You're going to get a freebie. I'm not exactly throwing out anything newsworthy here that they haven't thought about. And I'm sure Plummer, Brom, and all those guys know that too. But again, the proof's in the pudding. He's a 5th or 6th year guy. He just throws picks. At this point, you are who you are. If you mix it up, you'll give him problems. I wouldn't play a lot of just straight cover 1 because your DBs are turning their back. I'd play a little more zone and mix it up fire zone because that's when the freebies come. One single overthrow, a deflection, Farmer tips the ball in the air, whatever. That's all you need. If you don't give up those explosives in the run game, you're going to see at least one go the other direction. You might see 2 because Florida State's DBs played pretty darn good against UF. They've been starting to play even better as the season goes along. I would say there's a darn near 50% chance you can get 2 picks in this football game. But again, constantly mixing it up. And the key isn't the play calling. I know fans like to bitch at coaches. This is going to be more player driven. At this point in the season, it's not about the play call. You know the formations. You know the play calls. You've done it a gazillion times in practice and in games. It's on the players to execute these. At the end of a play, if Louisville scores, everybody's looking at each other. That's not a coach problem. That's a player problem. Not at this point in the year. This is game 13. I want to say that now. Win, lose, close game, whatever it is. I don't want to hear anything about Florida State fans bitching in regards to, well, it was just the coach. No. 13th game of the year. This is the scheme. It's been the same DC for a while. They know it, or they should. It's on the players. They have the talent, and they've proven it too. This game is going to be a little bit more difficult because, again, Louisville runs a gazillion motions and shifts. They are annoying as all get out to prepare for. There's no friendly there. This is a team like when you get your schedule, if you've got the bye week before Louisville, you're happy. They're not an option team, which is the worst to have 1 week to prepare. It's a disaster. But it's the next. They'll shift 2 tight ends across, run a receiver across, then the running back will go in motion as they snap. It's just, there's really nothing you can do to prepare for everything. And there's going to be plays guaranteed that Louisville introduces in this game that Florida State has not seen. 100%. Braum has a playbook about like this. They'll reuse a couple that they practiced. That's just the way, it's a championship game. It means more to that program than it does Florida State. They don't get there very much, and it's his alma mater. Braum wants to win this game desperately, especially after they choked to Kentucky. They got nothing to lose. They're going to throw the book at Florida State. They got beat 38-31 in case you didn't know. They choked against Kentucky, had more turnovers. They outplayed them, but they killed themselves. Again, the interception was part of that. They cannot wait to play this game for redemption and at least go to a good bowl game. This is their chance to knock Florida State out. It's a team they usually lose to. Florida State, on the other hand, you think about this situation, the Noles can go to the playoff if they win. So the stakes are high both directions. Make sure you know the playbook. Make sure you understand your results from the week on what they're likely to do. And also understand they're going to make some plays. They have good football players over there at Louisville. So scheme or not, you got to be honest about that. And it's being prepared. That's everything. Speaking of being prepared, LinkedIn Jobs gives you a chance to be prepared. If you're hiring for the Christmas season, and I've been a part of this before, whether it's part-time help, whether you're trying to get a new staff together, salespeople, maybe it's a new office, whatever it is. If you have not used LinkedIn Jobs, you should do so now, especially if you're hiring for a small business. You want to have many top-tier candidates as you can get. The app is easy to use. You can set up screening questions that'll help your small business be successful. So for another way to look at this, the vast network that LinkedIn has, you can contact people that you've known for your entire life. Go through there and you can send them a message to help you. You could also find people within LinkedIn to get you started on it. They have different people to help you in different ways if you have different criteria for different spots. LinkedIn Jobs is a very easy platform to use. I know because I have used it for a long time. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Now, final thing. What's the key here if you're going to stymie them? You've got to also hit on the other side of the ball, right? Florida State, we talked about it a little bit. Rodemaker was 12 of 25, 134 yards against the Gators. Terrible start, but he played better as the game went on. Made some clutch plays right before half. They got their first score. Early in the third quarter, they did a great job helping Tate out. Some good play calls, execution, John A. Keon, etc., making catches. They ran the ball better. Trey ended up with 3 touchdowns. Really balanced and team-oriented football led Florida State to a 24-15 win. Now, you cannot have that start regardless of what you do on defense against Louisville. Let me just throw that out. This is an extra. That will not work. Louisville's offense will bury you. You cannot give them short fields, turnovers, penalties, any of that. That's a no. All across the board is a big no. Having stated that, if you can get a few short fields and you can also at least keep yourself from being inside the 20, that's probably the number one place that coaches are going to change their play calling, although a lot of them won't necessarily admit it publicly. They don't like to be real aggressive inside their 20, especially with a new quarterback. It's hard. Florida State has a chance, just like Louisville, because they got a great play caller, Norvell. They can be creative. Nobody really knows what Tate likes the most. He's only got one game film where he's started and played all the way through. So that's an advantage. Maybe it's a backside screen. Maybe it's a play where Tate likes to roll right, throw deep on a post off the left. Whatever it is, nobody knows it really. They didn't show a ton against the Florida Gators. Advantage Florida State. Use it. The first time you get a 3 and out against Louisville, and it'll happen, Rodemaker's got to be able to hit some passes, just flat out more accurate than he was, especially down the field. When the Florida State defense delivers, he's got to back it up and deliver too. This is a two-way street. He's good enough. He's talented enough. He's got a strong enough arm. He's worked with these guys forever. Portier and a bunch of other guys, Keon, etc., will help him. He's got to be more accurate. The two things that I will say to wrap this up is, number one, the offensive line's got to play better at the beginning. They got to run the ball better. Louisville's run defense is legit. 97 yards a game, 12th in the nation. They're also 25th in the nation, giving up 20 points per game, but they're only 56th in pass D. Their defensive secondary is okay, and they get after the quarterback, so it's more back end. They got a couple of defensive players up front that are really good. 56th, 217.9 through the air. You're going to have to hit big plays down the field. You're not going to just play gorilla ball, beat them up front. Not with the way Florida State's offensive lines have been beat up and mismatched all year long. It's not very likely. Again, just to reiterate, 96.8 yards a game. That's what Louisville gives up. They're going to have to be really creative on offense to have any consistency. And even then, I think realistically, the way Florida State's offense is operated, even when Jordan was behind the center, they were a big play offense more often than not. You're not going to have 12 and 14 play drives with Rodemaker a lot. Shorter field. Again, we've talked about that during the entire show. And two, you're going to have to just scheme up 10 to 14 points for him. From there, he's just got to make accurate throws and not give it away. The obvious. If he has 2 or 3 turnovers, they're not winning. But that's any game. Jordan Travis, it's the same deal. You have to be considerate with throwing the ball away sometimes, because 2nd and 10 is better than 1st and 10 for them. Those are the only two things really I have to finish up on this. So to wrap up, they've got 2 great running backs, Jawhar Jordan. Guerendo is a big back, even though he's 225. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. They're 2 of the 3 or 4 fastest guys on the team together, the 2 running backs. Got to be solid for the entirety of the game. How are they going to do it? They're going to have to mix it up front. Some blitzes, fire zone. I don't personally think they should place a lot of straight man. I think they should mix up zone, because I think they're going to have the opportunity to get some picks. Plummer will throw it away at some point. And then when you do get opportunities, shorter field, you get the ball at your own 40, midfield, whatever, turnover situation, you're going to have to scheme it up. You got to scheme it up. You got to find some creative plays. You're not going to consistently go 12, 14 plays against Louisville's defense running the ball. It's just reality based on the numbers this year, and 12 out of 25 for 134 yards for Rodemaker. I do expect him to play better than he did against Florida. I mean, I'm realistic. But Louisville's defense is much better than Florida. It's not even close. So they have to find a way to be really creative with him. With that, everybody have a great day, and thank you very much. Please hit that like button and that notification bell and share this podcast. If you have something you want to say about Tate or something you think they should do with the play call, give me a comment in the section on YouTube, whatever it may be. I'm curious. This game can go many ways, and there's a lot of thoughts. Those were mine. I'm curious to see what you have to say. Everybody have a good one.